I had just dropped my dad and stepmother at the airport for their dream month-long vacation when my phone rang. It was Maria, our housekeeper. Her voice was shaking. "Ma'am, don't go home. Check the cameras. Right now." I pulled over, opened the live security feed on my phone and froze. Two moving trucks were parked in my driveway. Inside my house, movers were carrying out my furniture, antiques, artwork and family heirlooms. And standing in the middle of it all was my stepbrother, Brandon. He was holding a power of attorney document with what appeared to be my signature. Except I had never signed it. My name is Caroline Adams. I'm 33 years old and I spent 12 years in the Army, including 3 deployments where I specialized in tactical logistics. I had learned one important lesson: never let anger control the operation. So instead of racing home and confronting Brandon, I made a different choice. I drove straight to the bank. Because years earlier my late mother had quietly left me something Brandon knew nothing about. A contingency plan designed for exactly the kind of situation I was facing. That morning had started peacefully. I had driven my father, Arthur, and my stepmother, Evelyn, to the airport for their month-long trip to Europe. My father's health had been declining, and Evelyn had insisted they needed the vacation. I said goodbye, watched their flight leave and headed home. Then Maria called. "Caroline, please don't come back," she whispered. "Check the cameras." I did. My blood ran cold. Brandon, Evelyn's 35-year-old son from her previous marriage, was directing a crew of movers through my home. Brandon had always believed the world owed him something. He had launched several failed tech companies, accumulated unpaid loans and left angry investors behind him. Whenever another one of his business ideas collapsed, Evelyn stepped in to rescue him. And over the past 2 years she had quietly been using my father's money to cover his debts. As my father's health worsened, Evelyn became even more aggressive. She pushed me away from family decisions, isolated my father, and slowly began presenting Brandon as the person who should inherit everything. She thought my military background made me too rigid to fight back. He was wrong. While they thought I was simply stepping away from the family drama, I was watching. Recording. Waiting. I zoomed in on the security footage. Brandon stood in the marble foyer with a thick folder in his hands. He showed the moving crew what looked like an official power of attorney, along with a property transfer document carrying my forged signature. His plan was obvious. He intended to remove nearly $200,000 worth of vintage artwork, antique silver, family heirlooms, and custom vehicles. Then he planned to transfer ownership of the property to a shell company before my father even landed in Europe. Brandon believed he had created the perfect crime. He had no idea he was already being recorded. My first instinct was to drive straight home and confront him. But my military training took over. A confrontation would only help Brandon. He could destroy the evidence, hide the documents, or pretend he was the victim. I had learned never to fight on an opponent's chosen ground. So I changed the battlefield. Sitting in my car, I accessed the estate's security system and activated a silent backup. Every camera angle, audio recording, and smart home access log was copied to a secure off-site server. Brandon thought he was bypassing an ordinary home security system. He had no idea I had upgraded the entire property months earlier with encrypted surveillance. Every word he spoke was being recorded. Every move was being documented. Then I reached into my glove compartment and pulled out a small leather binder. It contained the one thing Brandon had never planned for: my mother's contingency plan. Brandon and Evelyn had spent years planning how to control my father's assets. But they had overlooked one major detail: my biological mother's legacy. Before she died, my mother had placed the house, the land titles, and our most valuable family heirlooms into an irrevocable family trust. The trust had been carefully protected by an independent estate firm. No spouse, stepchild, or other family member could change it without meeting strict legal conditions. Brandon was trying to steal property my father didn't even legally own. And he had no idea. Instead of driving home, I headed downtown to First National Bank, where my mother's estate firm maintained its private office. Brandon thought he was racing against time while my father was thousands of feet in the air with no phone service. He didn't realize I was already several steps ahead. When I entered the private wealth office, my family's estate attorney, Arthur Vance, was waiting. I had already sent him the live security footage and audio recordings. His expression changed immediately as he watched Brandon walking through the house with forged documents. He signed your name to a fraudulent power of attorney, Vance said coldly. And he attempted to transfer property he has absolutely no legal authority over. He paused. This isn't just a civil matter, Caroline. It could be a serious criminal offense. Within minutes, Vance activated the emergency protections my mother had established years earlier. Joint family credit lines were frozen. The estate trust accounts were secured. And an emergency hold was filed with the county recorder to prevent any unauthorized property transfer. Brandon's plan had been stopped before it could even begin. Vance then prepared legal notices documenting the alleged trespass, forgery, and theft. 2 police cruisers were dispatched to the estate. It was time to go home. When I arrived, the second moving truck was backing out of the driveway, loaded with more than $200,000 worth of family belongings. I parked directly across the driveway, blocking the exit. A moment later, Brandon walked through the front doors. He looked completely confident. Caroline, he said with a smug smile. You weren't supposed to be back this soon. He walked toward me, holding the forged document. Dad and my mother agreed it was time to consolidate the family assets. I have full power of attorney, so I suggest you move before this gets ugly. I didn't move. My posture stayed calm and controlled. You have 5 seconds to tell those movers to put everything back. Brandon laughed. I have legal rights to this house now. You're the one trespassing. Then 2 police cruisers turned onto the street. Their lights flashed as they pulled toward the estate. Behind them came Arthur Vance. The confidence disappeared from Brandon's face. Vance immediately presented the officers with the original trust documents. I opened the surveillance footage on my tablet. The officers watched as Brandon discussed the forged documents and directed the movers to remove our property. His entire story began falling apart. The officers explained that my father had never possessed the legal authority to give Brandon ownership of the property. The forged power of attorney meant nothing. Brandon started stammering. Then the officers placed him in handcuffs. He began shouting for Evelyn, insisting this was all a misunderstanding. The moving crew quickly realized they had been pulled into something far more serious than they had expected. They agreed to cooperate. Under police supervision, they unloaded everything and returned the furniture and heirlooms to the house. As Brandon was taken away, I called my father. He and Evelyn had just landed in London for a layover. Dad, I said calmly. Put the phone on speaker. When Evelyn joined the call, I told them everything. The movers. The forged power of attorney. The attempted property transfer. And Brandon being taken away in handcuffs. Evelyn immediately broke down. You're trying to destroy my son, she screamed. It was just a mistake. But then Arthur Vance revealed what our investigation had uncovered. Financial records showed that Evelyn had secretly given Brandon the house keys, security codes, and account information 3 days before leaving for Europe. My father went completely silent. For years he had trusted her. Now he was hearing the truth for himself. The betrayal was devastating. But there was no denying the evidence. Right there in the airport terminal, my father told Evelyn their marriage was over. He instructed his attorneys to begin divorce proceedings and permanently cut off financial support for both her and Brandon. For the first time in years, the pressure surrounding our family finally began to lift. My father returned home a week later. He was deeply hurt by what had happened, but he was also proud of how I had handled it. Our family estate was secure again, protected by the trust my mother had created years before. Over the following months, I restored the house. Room by room, I brought back the warmth and peace that had disappeared under years of family conflict. Brandon eventually accepted a plea deal that included prison time and restitution. Evelyn was left to deal with the financial consequences of her own choices without my father's money to support her. Today, when I stand in our garden, I think about everything that happened. True strength isn't always about reacting immediately when someone tries to hurt you. Sometimes strength means staying calm, watching carefully, preparing quietly, and letting someone's own arrogance lead them into the trap they created for you. So, what would you have done in my situation? Would you have confronted Brandon immediately, or would you have taken the tactical approach? Share your thoughts in the comments and tell me what city you're watching from. I'd love to know how far this story has reached. Thanks for watching.